Rob Martin, you are so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our valuable leadership conversation. It's so great to see you again. And we're here to really speak about National Disability Employment Month in the US. We were so thrilled to have Voya Financial join the Valuable 500, and it's with your leadership. Why did you join?
At Voya for some time, we've understood that a commitment to disability inclusion in the workplace just makes sense. It's the right thing to do. It's incredibly important from a business perspective. And the correlation between disability inclusion and business performance is clear. Let me give you an example. Recently, Accenture did a report that found companies that offered inclusive working environments for people with disabilities achieved, on average, 28% higher revenue, 30% higher profits, and 2 times higher income than their industry peers. That just makes sense. Why not use that as an advantage? And that's simply the thought process that we did as we launched into this.
So you talk about the aspirations of your company. It's to be the retirement company, the best retirement company for America. Is that correct?
When we took Voya public, Carolyn, 8 years ago, we set a big, bold, ambitious aspiration to be recognized over time as America's retirement company. And one of the things that we discovered pretty quickly is if we really are going to serve all Americans, then we need to serve 1 in 5 families, as you know, is part of a special needs or someone with disability or a caregiving group. And we needed to serve all of the families. And so we took a pause and stepped back and had an internal, very frank conversation with ourselves of how do we begin that journey?
And for me, the point is, were you, when you talk about all, before you just started this journey 8 years ago, were you aware that you were missing out on this extraordinary market opportunity? And now, are you one of many leaders who recognize the opportunity, or are you one of few?
Carolyn, we clearly were not fully aware of the opportunity. But candidly, when we started this, it wasn't from a commercial perspective. When we started this, and I've shared this story with you, I have a very dear friend for more than 4 decades. In fact, we started in the business together as practitioners. He was in the insurance business, working with his customer base, and I with mine. My career took a different path 20 some years later. He's one of my best friends. He happens to be in Washington, D.C. As a result of my job, I have to be in Washington pretty frequently. And we would get together regularly. And he'd update me on, obviously, his family and his life and his business. And one of the life events that happened with him was he had, in a rather short period of time, 2 family members that became disabled or needed special care. And he was somebody that was in the business and theoretically knew how to maneuver this landscape perhaps better than many. And what he discovered was there was a lot he didn't know. And he subsequently dedicated his practice to serving not only his family members, but similar people with special needs, disability, and caregivers. And I would listen to this over a period of time. And when I got to Voya, it was like I've heard the bell ring and I can't unhear that. And when we jointly at Voya focused on the real passion of serving all Americans, we had to take a step back and say, how are we serving that community? And Carolyn, we started internally, and we literally went in an offsite meeting and just had, as I've shared with you, a Saturday morning conversation about what this is, what we need to learn about it, because there was so much we didn't know. Mm-hmm. And in the context of that day or day and a half conversation, it was just Jerry and I on a stool talking with this group. We discovered there were many people that had worked together side by side for multiple years. And it was just a conversation that didn't naturally happen in the company. They didn't know that they had, a child with Down syndrome, or they were part of a caregiving group in their family. It just wasn't discussed. And so our focus initially, Carolyn, was simply on how do we serve our existing employees? Are we giving them the information, support, and resources they need? And that subsequently led to, a number of years discovering that, adjusting our benefits, and then saying, we're ready to start serving our customers. And we began 8 years ago, and it's been a test and learn piece. And along the way, we did discover there was a commercial opportunity, but we didn't approach it that way. And as a result of that, it's been one of our fastest growing employee resource groups. The company has just embraced it. It evolved into our program called Voya Cares. And as I've shared with you, we're a very competitive business, like many. You're narrowed down to two companies, largely when they're choosing an institutional player to serve their retirement plan. And in many ways, those two companies are very fine and quite similar in brand, reputation, data security, digital tools, all those things. So how does one begin to differentiate? And one of the things we talk about is, among others, our Voya Cares program, in that how we are serving, and we've got some capabilities to serve and be a resource to this community. And you start to see people nod their heads. We also talk about the Aspirations Institute and a number of other things. And these are truly the differentiating factors that often tilt an otherwise pretty equal decision to Voya.
I've been talking about this, about what you said last week. And I mean, you can hear leaders go, oh, because you've made the connection between the employee talent and then to the customer. You see, it's been gone around the wrong way for so long, but that talent to customer piece is really where it's integrating and driving success for the business and for the employees. But if we look now, Rod, in this incredible time of the talent crunch, do you believe that this will enable you to attract the best talent, this attitude and culture you have, and to retain the best talent? Is this one of you're seeing as an employee competitive advantage now, as well as a customer competitive advantage?
Absolutely. And for some very interesting reasons. We are facing that challenge like many companies. And one of the things that we've learned, and it applies to many industries, not all, but certainly ours, over the last almost 2 years, Carolyn, as we were talking about just last week, we've been operating in a hybrid environment. We've been 99% remote over that period of time, and life has gone on. Our people have adjusted. We've served our customers. We've grown our business. And so what has that created? It's allowed us to really rethink our business model in a very different way. And we are approaching this for all of our employees, not just employees with special needs, in what best works for you, Carolyn, or me as an individual. And what we mean by that is you might choose to be a fully virtual employee. You might choose to be a hybrid employee, which means you may come to the office a day or 2 or 3 a week. Or you may say, I can't wait to get back to the office, and we're certainly going to welcome that community back. What we're finding is companies, and what I strongly believe, companies that offer that agility to employees are going to be more likely than not winners in this talent war, and it is very real. Now, take an extension of that. We happen to be in 5 or 6 of the major cities in the US from a geographic perspective. We are no longer bound by geography in our thinking. And we are searching for talent, a full range of talent, whether they have special needs or not, anywhere in the US. And the fact that there are so many talented men and women that if commuting weren't the issue or accessibility weren't the issue, that I think the aperture of our widening the scope of who's available has really changed dramatically. And we are very strongly leaning into this and looking to organizations like the Valuable 500 and Disability In and NDSS and Wounded Warriors. There's great resources out there that are more than able, willing, and interested in helping. And particularly when you're not having to deal with, is the commute possible or not? Is accessibility difficult or not? 70 or 80% of our people, we think, are going to be either fully virtual or hybrid. That applies to this constituency also. So I'm excited about it.
Well, the other thing for me, I'm often known to say this quote, and it's not my quote, it's John Amachi's. Leaders make choices and those choices create culture. So you're speaking about a culture transformation program that you've been doing over 8 years, right? So you're learning and embedding this all the time. But we have found leaders are very reticent in speaking out like you have. I mean, it's hard because you don't have the answers, right? And is there any advice that you can give to your peer group? Because like you had to start somewhere and we don't have all the answers. And you are one of the very few who are doing it. So is there any advice that you could give?
I can simply share our experience and some of the outcome. So, we took this company public 8 years ago, as you pointed out, and we focused on a number of things, very much our focus on disability inclusion, as we've discussed. But we also focused on being viewed as one of the most ethical companies in the world. There's an Ethisphere Institute that rates and ranks globally companies. There's only 132 chosen, Carolyn, far fewer in our industry. And we've been fortunate enough to be chosen for 8 consecutive years. We're in the long-term promise-keeping business. Yes. And people want to do business with like-minded people that are transparent in the way that we are. So we very much focused on culture, brand, and serving the customers in a way that we've discussed. And so we have focused on it. We talk about it a lot. Carolyn, I mentioned to you that I've been talking about this from the very beginning at our quarterly investor calls, in our annual report, and in the early days, for sure, people pointed out, they literally said, the analyst said, Rod, do you realize you're one of the few, perhaps even only, that is bringing this up regularly? And of course I did, and it was purposeful. And it's something that brought the eyes and attention on the very things that we wanted to lean in on, execute well, and be known for. And it's the range of things. And our Voya Cares program and our commitment to this community is very foundational in all of that. Now, to your point of there's no owner's manual, and it is scary to take that first step. Carolyn, people like you and the other leaders of the other organizations we talked about have been unbelievably supportive in extending a hand and said, we'll figure this out together. Because if you wait till you have all the answers, you're never going to take the first step. And you've got to take the first step and work along the way. And it's been a test and learn. And we are increasingly asked to share our view. I'm very happy to do so. And I do think the combination of things we talked about are the distinct competitive advantage that we have, all the other things being equal.
Well, thank you so much. I have to say that you could not be more right. If we waited to have all the answers, then we would never begin. And I really want to acknowledge you and our valuable 500 leaders who are willing to stand up and share their stories, because I honestly think that's the only way that we're going to be able to create this culture within our business systems to be contagious, contagiously collective, and to delivering change. So thank you so much. I look forward to our next Saturday conversation sometime in the world, and I hope it might be face-to-face than virtual. And thank you to Voya Financial, to your team, and to everybody in creating an inclusive world for all.
Carolyn, thank you.